Well, my name is Jim Sano with the World Wildlife Fund. We have a very action-packed afternoon, so we have to get started. First of all, I wanted to thank our Fijian host. I just love the word bula. I mean, you just feel it, surrounding you, and it's, you don't have that in all destinations. So I think we feel really special and privileged for being here. Today's session is on tourism's role in environmental regeneration, ocean conservation, and community resilience. And the objective is how tourism can contribute to regenerating natural environments, protecting ocean health, and supporting really resilient communities. And as Randy mentioned at the opening session, there are a lot of labels out there for sustainability in the travel industry. But I think we all can agree that we all aspire, all these labels or terms aspire to achieve the same goals, which is protecting our natural and cultural resources for future generations, providing for community benefit, and also really creating a vibrant stakeholder engagement in the planning process, which you don't always see in many destinations. This session is about 75 minutes long. We will have, again, the Slido up there, which you'll see momentarily, the QR code. And we encourage you as the session goes along to place your questions in there so that we can give our panelists some pithy or provocative questions. Also, again, you don't really have to take notes because all sessions will be recorded. All of the slides will be available as well. So we encourage you to really take advantage of that resource. There's also the Snap Site AI application that's running in the background, which will capture kind of the key points throughout the session. So that is kind of an experiment for GSTC conference this year, but I would encourage you to take advantage of that. So if I can invite all of our panelists to the stage right now. So again, the structure of this presentation, what we hope to do is provide you everything from the macro strategic planning or strategic planning to how to achieve environmental regulation, ocean conservation, and community resilience. So we're going to first start off with looking at the macro view at a regional level to ultimately its application at the property or the resort level. So our panelists today will start off with Dwayne Bentley, and he's from the Secretariat of the Pacific Region Environmental Program, where he's part of the Australian government-funded Pacific Ocean Litter Project. Next will be Jerome Mafutuna, and he serves as the head of the Coral Gardener Experience Fiji, which is an NGO whose mission is to create innovative science-based coral reef restoration solutions and offer experiences for travelers to educate, engage, and inspire to care. Our third speaker will be our second speaker, is Andrew Leary. He's the principal and lead of Coraggio Travel and Tourism Practice, which is a firm that conducts strategic research, planning, and activation of initiatives that focus on sustainability, inclusion, accessibility, and stakeholder engagement. And then finally, we have Raquel Diaz, who is the Sustainability Director for Six Senses Fiji. And I got to know a little bit about her program, and it's really fantastic in terms of really the practices, but also engaging the local community. So please welcome our panelists, and we will start off with Dwayne.
All right, thank you very much, Jim, for the introduction. Talofa, Bula, and good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I'll be speaking about an activity which ties in nicely with our session's theme, which of course is tourism and environmental regeneration. That's SPREP through the Pacific Ocean Litter Project and the Pacific Tourism Organization, SPTO, undertaking, and this of course is the Standards and Certification Program to phase out single-use plastics in the Pacific tourism industry. Now, for my part of the session, I'll broadly provide the context and rationale for what we've done and plan to do. I'll touch on plastic pollution, provide an overview of the Pacific Ocean Litter Project, and setting the scene for the partnership again between SPREP and SPTO, and then talk about the Standards and Certification Program and its main components. Firstly, the why. Why have we done what we've done? We'll come to the what a little later, but in terms of the why, ladies and gentlemen, it's the growing problem of plastic pollution and the environmental, economic, and social challenges posed by it, particularly in coastal and island communities. Plastic pollution demands immediate and collective action. We know that the process to negotiate and develop an international, legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment, continues. And I'm pleased to share that for the Pacific, it's very much a well-coordinated approach and presence under the PSIDS, or Pacific Small Island Developing States umbrella. In fact, the resumed and final session of the International Negotiating Committee, or INC, is happening right now from the 5th to the 14th of August in Geneva. There, the Pacific continues to advocate for an ambitious treaty that considers the full life cycle of plastics, from extraction to design to production and manufacturing through to waste management. Now, for the Pacific, marine litter and plastic pollution are covered in the Pacific Marine Litter Action Plan, which is a subset of the Cleaner Pacific Strategy. Now, while the next iteration of the Cleaner Pacific Strategy is under development, Pacific Island countries at the 2024 Clean Pacific Roundtable in Tuvalu agreed to elevate plastic pollution in particular, and that the growing magnitude of plastic pollution requires continuing concerted action. The Marine Litter Action Plan emphasizes that plastic litter is the most pervasive worldwide and can provide upwards of 90% of litter collected on beaches and shorelines, and with takeaway food and beverage and coastal tourism businesses being among high-risk sources in the Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian government-funded Pacific Ocean Litter Project being implemented by SPREP is an initiative to assist Pacific Island countries to reduce single-use plastic marine litter in its coastal environments, in alignment with the Marine Litter Action Plan and the Clean Pacific Strategy. PULP for short focuses on initiatives to refuse, reduce, and replace certain types of single-use plastics, including those used in tourism and takeaway food and beverage businesses, such as plastic bags, cups, plates, cutlery, straws, and food containers. PULP started in 2019 and runs up to 2027, and it's being delivered through a combination of regional and country-specific national activities. The Standards and Certification Program that's been developed with SPTO and the Pacific tourism industry is an example of a regional activity. The overall goal of PULP is cleaner coastal environments, and essentially the pathway towards this is about achieving impactful change. Ultimately, plastic waste is generated by people, and so reducing plastic waste means getting people to change their behavior. The question we ask ourselves is, how do we know if we've achieved this or are on the pathway to realize this change? And what does that look like? Now, from a simplified theory of change perspective, it's when PULP and partners such as SPTO have advocated, developed policy and strategy measures to reduce single-use plastics and provided information about alternatives to industry and communities. It's when policy and strategy makers are taking measures to reduce single-use plastics and promote alternatives. It's when consumers, both visiting and and local in Pacific Island countries are using less single-use plastics and more alternatives. And it's when target sectors and businesses, such as the tourism industry, are adopting plastic reduction measures and alternatives. And at this juncture, I'd just like to acknowledge the leadership and initiatives that many operators across the Pacific tourism industry have undertaken and continue to undertake to refuse, reduce, and replace single-use plastics. Now, under one of PULP's outcomes, and again in alignment with the Cleaner Pacific Strategy and the Marine Litter Action Plan, as well as the 2030 Pacific Sustainable Tourism Policy Framework, which includes the destination and industry standards, PULP is partnering with the Pacific Tourism Organization to help enhance the sustainability and resilience of the tourism sector through upstream plastic reduction or phase-out measures. Now, strategically and with the theory of change very much in mind, the option to work with SPTO and the Pacific tourism industry makes complete sense. And can I highlight that when we talk about the tourism industry, we're talking about more than just the accommodation subsector. We're also talking about food and beverage operators, tour operators, cruise lines, airlines, as well as event organizers and managers. Now, I understand I'm preaching to the converted, but I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't touch on the opportunity at hand, especially from a waste management perspective, keeping in mind the challenges the Pacific faces, including those that are infrastructure related, and of course the growing traveler preferences and expectations for enhanced sustainability and footprint reduction. We've established why we're doing what we're doing. Now, as we start to talk about what we've done, let me build on the basis of our collaboration with SPTO. Quickly, SPTO and SPREP have an overarching memorandum of understanding in place. Recognition of SPTO as the mandated regional organization that's responsible for supporting and promoting responsible and resilient approaches to sustainable tourism development and long-term prosperity. SPREP, through the Pacific Ocean Litter Project and SPTO, signed a letter of agreement in 2023 to research, design, and develop the standards and certification program. Now, as a regional activity, an important goal for PULP was to co-design, and SPTO co-design and co-develop with industry, a tool that is not only fit for purpose for the needs of the Pacific tourism industry, but also a streamlined regional framework that could be incorporated into national schemes, whether in whole or in part. In November 2025, the standards were endorsed by the SPTO Board of Directors and subsequently launched by the Council of Tourism Ministers. Then in May this year, at the SPTO Board of Directors meeting, the board endorsed and launched the certification framework and implementation toolkit for the standards. Now, the latter milestone achieved in May signaled the completion of program development work. As you can hopefully see, the program comprises of three main components. These are, of course, the standards, the certification framework, as well as the implementation toolkit. The standards provide a clear framework for NTOs and businesses to assess their current performance and progressively improve their sustainability practices. Again, it sits within the Pacific Sustainable Tourism Industry Standard. It targets phase-out and reduction at the procurement stage. The certification framework sets the foundation for tourism businesses and organizations to tailor their own national certification programs and serves as a platform for progressing to international certification benchmarks. The framework also incorporates a timeline for progressive achievements intended to guide businesses and destinations in establishing a baseline, ultimately aiming to phase out 100% of the identified baseline. And then finally, the toolkit supports the implementation of the standards and certification framework. It provides resources, good practice examples, guidance, templates, and other tools to enable tourism businesses and organizations to implement the criteria and advance the proposed 4 tiers of the certification framework. My time is up, but very quickly in closing, in wrapping up, with the program now in place, I'm pleased to share that the next phase of our partnership with SPTO is the in-country implementation with national tourism organizations and industry of the Standards and Certification Program. Very broadly speaking, this will include workshops and trainings with industry, as well as local distributors and manufacturers of plastic alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne. And next up is Andrew Leary, who again is the principal and lead for the sustainable tourism practice for the Coraggio group.
Good afternoon. So there's been this identity shift underway for a long time with destination organizations. And my group, Coraggio, gets to work with destination organizations in the US primarily. So that's a perspective that I want to share today. Many of these DMOs are figuring out how to balance traditional marketing roles with broader destination management responsibilities. The pressure to drive visitation hasn't gone away, but it's now joined by expectations to address housing, sustainability, workforce, and quality of life. And that's a lot to hold, especially when funding, staffing, and governance structures haven't always evolved at the same pace. And what we're seeing is a sector in motion that's still charting this path between, are we promotion focused or are we management focused? And can we be both at the same time? There are other factors that are happening inside the US that are important to acknowledge as well. There's a new government in place in the United States that's making a lot of changes. The identity shift that I mentioned is happening simultaneously while these big government changes are also happening. And many DMOs are struggling right now because this growing trend of tourism funding that's increasingly under a microscope and under critique from legislatures and government bodies. So people are tightening budgets. There's political pressures to save dollars, to reduce taxes, to figure out where we can cut corners. Now people are starting to look at tourism programs, especially those that are tied to marketing or visitor services. And it's not just at local levels, it's also at the highest levels as well. Brand USA, which is the organization that promotes the United States to the rest of the world, had a $100 million budget that was reduced down to $20 million this year and for the future. So an $80 million reduction in budget is quite a bit when thinking about a country promoting on a global scale. And there's a ripple effect that's happening at state levels and at municipal levels as well. It creates a real vulnerability for these destinations who are trying to figure out, are we marketing and promotion or are we management? And if their core is marketing and promotion, then the management side of things is going to be held off a little bit more because there's not the budget to embark into the management side. So there's some other interesting news coming out of the US as well. There's a new research report called Destination Forward that Coraggio Group was involved with, along with the International Institute of Tourism Studies at the George Washington University. It's the largest ever study of its kind to assess the value and impact of destination stewardship plans in particular, and how those strategies ripple across the United States. The study identified 35 leading examples of destination stewardship plans, representing a wide range of destinations, from Ketchikan, Alaska, to Vail, Colorado, to San Diego, California, to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The research team reviewed 35 diverse destinations, ranging from these mountain towns to urban centers to islands to coastal communities. Nearly 90% of these plans were created after 2020, which is really important because that's a clear sign that destinations are responding quickly to community concerns and the changes that we encountered during the pandemic. And while every destination in the study is unique, we're seeing some consistent themes that emerge around sustainability and certainly links to regenerative tourism as well. The QR code on the screen, by the way, can take you to the full study if you're curious to take a look at it. There are a lot of findings within the study. This one in particular about the environment I think is really important. When it comes to the environment, there's often a gap between what's aspirational and what's action-oriented. And while 89% of the plans mentioned practicing and protecting natural resources, only a little over half actually lay out the clear steps to do so. And even fewer, just 15%, included actionable strategies for climate adaptation, which is so crucial to these destination stewardship plans or strategies or master plans or whatever the name for your plan is. Climate solutions need to be a part of it. What this tells us is that while the intent is there are destination organizations that are still struggling to move from the values to implementation, especially when it comes to this idea of environmental regeneration. Destination marketing organizations view themselves in the US as leaders within their community, but often those communities aren't aware of those destination organizations. So there's a big disconnect. And there's a quote from Claudia Vecchio, who's the CEO, going backwards, sorry. There's a quote from Claudia Vecchio, who's the CEO of Sonoma County Tourism in California. It's a California destination just north of the San Francisco Bay Area, and they went through the GSTC assessment in 2022. And Claudia said this: "The initiatives we're still having the greatest challenge with are those that involve entities with which we can only act as a partner. These programs operated by entities not generally considered in the tourism ecosystem, like transportation, like land management, like cultural protection." We can go on and on and on. Within the US, remember that destination marketing organizations, that M for marketing is still very strong, and the M transition to management is still a journey that people are on. So there are a lot of challenges. There are also some solutions out there which are really innovative. And one of those solutions comes from Lake Tahoe, California. The TOT, T-Bid Dollars at Work program is administered by the North Tahoe Community Alliance, the destination organization in North Tahoe. And it reinvests tourism-generated funds into locally led initiatives that advance community vitality, economic health, and environmental stewardship. So to decode this a little bit, TOT, Transient Occupancy Tax. T-Bid is Tourism Business Improvement District. What that is, it's a public-private partnership in which local tourism-related businesses agree to self-assess fees that help to fund marketing, sales, tourism development, sustainability, regeneration. It's really dependent on what the community is excited about and energized by. These T-bids are typically managed by the destination marketing organization or management organization, in this case, North Lake Tahoe. The interesting thing is that these funds are legally restricted and must be used in accordance with the management plan that goes along with this district being formed. So what that means is that legislatures can't identify close to $40 million of revenue that has been generated by this and then decide to take that into general fund and do something else with it. It is built by the community and it is intended for the community. So because of the spending decisions that are guided by these locally represented communities and the NTCA board, environmental regeneration efforts funded through this program are both mission aligned and protected from that diversion to unrelated priorities. And since its launch in 2022, the program has directly reinvested approximately $33.5 million into community development in North Lake Tahoe, with over $9 million specifically allocated towards facilities, trails, and transportation projects. The image that's on here I think is also really interesting. So this is a sandwich board that is at one of their local trails, which is covered in snow. And the sandwich board is communicating to people that the benefit of this trail came from these programs, from this Dollars at Work program, which is so important because destination organizations struggle to communicate with their residents and with their lawmakers about what they do for their communities, other than say, visitors, come stay with us. To wrap up, another quick one is the state of Maine, which is in the United States, takes an education first approach. So responsible education, responsible visitor education called Look Out for Me. The capital M and the capital E are the abbreviation for the letter Maine. This program is really crucial because it leverages Leave No Trace, which is a well-known responsible recreation program, but turns it into something that any tourist, any visitor, any resident can learn from and be engaged with about what it means to spend time in Maine, what it means to spend time alongside Wabanaki indigenous culture, what it means to spend time alongside working Maine in forests and in coastal areas. So while there are challenges, destination organizations absolutely have a role in what it means to be connected to environmental regeneration, and through protected funds, through education campaigns, through coordination in their community, they're able to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And okay, next is Jerome, who is the lead head of the Coral Gardeners Experience Fiji.
Good evening, everyone. It's no secret that coral reefs all around the world is dying because of climate change, pollution, and unsustainable practices. Without any changes, it'll be the first ecosystem to collapse. But while tourism plays a part in its damage, we believe it can be a tool that could help restore and regenerate these ecosystems. Bulvinaka, my name is Jerome, and I'm so honored to be speaking in this year's GSTC representing Coral Gardeners. Coral Gardeners is a new generation of ocean guardians based here in the Pacific, and we're restoring reefs, protecting biodiversity, and reconnecting people with the ocean through action, awareness, and hope, one coral at a time. This movement began in 2017, when a group of young surfers and fishermen noticed drastic changes in their reefs. What was once colorful and bright was now white. Filled with curiosity, they started asking questions, only to find out that coral reefs all around the world were bleaching due to rising sea temperatures. And this was happening in their backyard. Driven by this, they started to take action. Coral Gardeners is a movement that revolutionizes ocean conservation, creating a global movement to restore coral reefs all around the world, bridging the gap between science and conservation efforts. To bring this ambitious mission to life, we operate around 3 pillars, and that's reef restoration, creating awareness, and innovation in science. Considering that the ocean temperature will rise in the next couple of years, our approach is to select heat-resistant corals in very stressful areas or hot pockets, cultivate them in our underwater nurseries, and once they are matured, the corals and their associated organisms will be then outplanted onto the reef, helping regenerate ecological functions and self-sustain ecosystems. We try to incorporate local knowledge with science. It makes our work more effective. To support our aspirations, we develop innovative tools in-house, such as the ReefOS app. Now, this app helps gardeners geolocate these resistant coral colonies, helps gardeners collect data in nurseries, and also monitor these outplanting sites so that we can track our impact and also analyze this data in real time. Ever since 2017 till 2024, so far we have planted over 166,000 corals, and we have restored 21,000 square meters of reef. That's equivalent to 3 soccer fields. We have educated over 10,000 people locally, and we have created over 70 full-time jobs. We have also raised over 10 million euros, and this goes directly to the restoration work that we do. in 2024, we developed a new program. It was called the Coral Gardeners Experience. Now, this is an eco-tourism program designed to educate guests and tourists by offering hands-on opportunities to participate in our coral conservation. From Moorea to Fiji, we were opening doors to what we do every day. Guests would hop onto our boats and dive into reef restoration, cleaning our nurseries, planting coral fragments on our ropes, and they would do this alongside our local teams, and they would gain a lot of knowledge with that. This program doesn't only fund the work that we do, but we believe it builds awareness and advocacy, because when people dive in, they develop a deeper sense of stewardship that inspires climate action beyond the tour, creating a ripple effect of impact. In addition to our ecotourism program, we also kept raising awareness in our islands by engaging in hands-on community restoration activities. In French Polynesia, we continued with our education programs with local schools. Now, this was designed also to inspire the next generation of ocean stewards. We also hosted a series of diverse groups, surfers from the World Surf Leagues, volleyball teams from the Cook Islands. But here in Fiji, we run an awareness program with the Six Senses Fiji. This is our partner here in the region and also our home. The program was also visited by Chris Hemsworth and Matt Damien, and they did a little workshop with us. Now this also helped spread the global awareness through their audience. Now to conclude, as coral gardeners, we don't just plant corals, we restore hope. We come from islands, from coasts, from communities that live and breathe the ocean. Many of us swam across reefs that were vibrant and live and colorful. But we see that same reef turning white and lifeless. Now these reefs were once noisy, but they are silent. This is not just an environmental loss. This is personal, it's cultural, and it's spiritual. And yet, every time we take a guest out or a tourist out to go and plant a coral, every time we see a coral fragment growing, and every time someone decides to be part of the solution, we are reminded why we keep fighting. This is what regeneration looks like, not just the science, but in people. In young islanders becoming ocean leaders, in visitors who come as strangers but go back as protectors. With that being said, we believe tourism has the power to restore, to regrow, and to regenerate our environment. Vinaka.
Thank you so much. And lastly, Raquel Diaz, who's the Sustainability Director for Six Senses Fiji.
See, we don't have any technological issue and you can hear me well. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your presence. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here speaking and sharing a little about the sustainability journey at Six Senses and how we use it to create a long-term impact. At Six Senses, from the very beginning, back in 1995, we've focused on sustainability, on sustainable practices across all of our operations. So, back in the days, no one really thought much about sustainability. The term has been coined only around that area. But things like energy monitoring and conservation, water preservation, responsible management of the waste. There's no waste being burned in any of our properties, for example. All the food waste and organic waste is composted and then goes back to the gardens. avoiding and eliminating plastics, like we recently shared last year in our Journey to Plastic Freedom, a booklet that is freely available for everyone and shares 82 solutions that we try across all of our properties, and we want to share and make it available for everyone. As well as prioritizing local suppliers and incorporating sustainability as part of the guest experience. That has always been part of Six Senses since the very beginning. So 30 years later, here we are, we've come a long way. There's still lots of challenges and opportunities for improvement, and we always keep on looking for those. But here's the thing, minimizing the impact of our operation is not enough. We live in a time when we see ecosystems collapsing, we see oceans warming, and communities under pressure. Was just recently on the news that 80% of the population from Tuvalu has requested for a relocation visa. I think when I first heard about climate refugees, I thought that that would not happen in my time, or not, at least not as soon as we're seeing now. And that's very sad to see. At Six Senses, we believe that tourism has an important role and has the potential to regenerate, to restore ecosystems, to empower communities, and to leave places better than we found them. We expand beyond our operations through our sustainability fund. This is a model that ensures that at every Six Senses, we allocate 0.5% of the revenue, not profit, towards community and conservation projects. This is mandatory across all of our properties and creates a long-term fund that supports deep partnerships. This structure ensures that regeneration keeps going and is not dependent on annual profitability. Now I'll share some examples of how it looks like at Six Senses Fiji. We are very fortunate to have a population of Fijian crested iguanas in our property, and this is one of our main conservation projects. This species is endemic to Fiji and unfortunately is critically endangered. And it was known to be existing in Malolo, but it was rediscovered on that area during the environmental study of the resort. And then the resort was built across that area, leaving the green belt, as we call it, as a conservation project. So without the resort, this population could have remained unnoticed, and these conservation efforts that we are implementing will not be there, and they are for the preservation of this species. So all of our projects have multiple dimensions, and in this particular case, what we are doing is that we are preserving the existing habitat. So there's around close to 1 hectare of an area that it's a tropical dry forest, and it's a perfect habitat for these iguanas. But we want to expand this habitat. So we are also working in the regeneration of what would be the traditional forest. And currently we have 5,500 square meters of area that are under this regeneration. And that means that we are removing invasive species. It means that we are improving the quality of the soil. And also at the same time, we are planting the native species that are important for the diet of these species. Additionally, we are also minimizing the threats for the species like the feral cats. So we started recently a project with Animals Fiji for the trap and neutering release of these animals. And of course, education and awareness are key of each of the projects. So we engage our guests, we engage our hosts, and we engage the community so that everyone understands how important it is to preserve habitats. We also have, as Jerome mentioned, we have a partnership with the coral gardeners. So the reef restoration program comes to life through the amazing work that the coral gardeners do. The coral gardeners approach joins the local expertise with science, and not focused just on the reef restoration, as Jerome mentioned, but the empowering of the communities, creating the local jobs. And this is a very important and strong partnership that we have. And these are just some details. So there's a lot of reef restoration projects that are not really backed up by science, and that is a mistake. In this case, there was proper assessment of the reefs around the area, not just to identify the reefs that are damaged and needed to be restored, but also where there could be the collection of the heat-resilient corals that the coral gardens want to plant. So after that, there was coral nurseries established, and currently there's more than 30,000 fragments of corals growing, and at some point they will be ready to be outplanted. Some have been outplanted already, and the restoration is starting since last year, so more than 12,000 corals were outplanted, mature corals, and the team is constantly doing the monitoring of all these areas. And again, the component of education and awareness, that it's also very important. We have guests that come all over the world that have opportunities to experience lots of things. And I have to say, with lots of pride, that every time they participate in one of the experiences with the coral gardens, they say that it's the highlight and it's the best experience that they ever had. And that is very impactful in terms of what that can represent for conservation. So it's really strong and should be integrated in all the conservation projects. Lastly, I want to speak a little bit about the community. So supporting the local community is also something that comes to life in many ways. By consulting with the community and having many of them employed in our resort, we can understand what are the needs of this community and try to find the best ways to support. So we never go to the communities and think, oh, this is how we think you should live, or this is how you think that things should be in this community. We go to the community and we ask if there's something that they need assistance with, and then we try our best to assist with those requests. We have projects currently that are related to water scarcity, that you know that it's a problem that affects many villages in Fiji and other locations in the world. We have projects related to improving the infrastructures, waste management, which we know that it's a pressing topic and requires everyone's collaboration to solve it. And we also have, again, education, not just in the community, but also in the community that works in our resort, because we have 34% of the people that work in our resort are from this local community. And when we do the education also inside of our operation, that also has the ripple effect that goes and spreads to the rest of the community. So we believe that education is crucial, and that's why it's incorporated in all of our projects. And just to finish, at Six Senses, regeneration is not an option or a marketing slogan. It's a systematic, funded, and measurable approach to create positive impact in the places that we operate. We believe tourism, when done right, can be a force for good for ecosystems and for the communities. And I'm taking this opportunity here to ask everyone that it's more than time for us to start working together, because otherwise it will be just a small effect. But if we all start speaking and sharing what's happening in each of the places, we can for sure create a better impact and a bigger impact that will be very important for the future of everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raquel. We are moving on to the question and answers. We actually achieved our goal of carving out 30 minutes for this interactive part of this session. And so you all have access to the Slido app. There's a QR code up there. Encourage you to look at the questions that are being posed by your fellow members of the audience. And if some of those questions echo yours, please feel free to like those questions. We've had a number of plastic-related questions, and it's definitely relevant for me because about 2 weeks ago on the California coast, I found a plastic bottle from Asia that was from a major manufacturer of beverages. I'll leave it at that. But it really illustrates the scale of the issue. And a question for you, Dwayne. It's really impressive that you're able to mobilize every country in the Pacific region, with perhaps the exception of Hawaii. How have you brought together this body how are you using that to scale up and to achieve scale with a rapid timeline, which is 7 years, as you mentioned?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim, for the question. And to sort of illustrate and respond to your question, I'd like to use the case study of the work that we're doing with the Pacific Tourism Organization. As I shared in my presentation, the Pacific Ocean Litter Project started in 2019 and runs up to 2027. Obviously we've got 2 or 3 years left, and we're very aware of the fact that we can't achieve everything within the time frame that's left. And so one of the things that we considered with the idea of developing the standards and certification program is that whilst PULP supported and funded the development of the program at the end of the day ultimately sits with the Pacific Tourism Organization. And so whilst it's going to be a legacy of the Pacific Ocean Litter Project, it's part and parcel of the Pacific Sustainable Tourism Policy Framework, the destination standards and the industry standards that were referred to. So that will remain there. And again, very mindful of the fact that SPTO is the mandated regional organization that's been given the power by the governments of the Pacific to promote and encourage sustainable tourism development across the Pacific.
Thank you very much. We have a question, 6 people like this question, and then it's for Raquel. How do you choose the restoration projects funded by the Sustainability Fund, and is the selection related to the property's footprint? And perhaps somewhat related to that is, to what degree is the community involved in selecting these projects?
Okay. I never know how these things work. Thank you for the question. So the projects are chosen related to what is needed in the island. So for example, in our specific case of Six Senses Fiji, we have a critically endangered species on our property, so that's pretty obvious. That needs to be, we need to do some conservation about it. We could not just ignore it. And as Jerome mentioned, the reef restoration is something that the coral reefs it's something that's also affected. So being in a location that there's so many reefs around and that need help, of course, that will also be a decision. About the community projects, usually the community is involved in the projects that are to happen in the community. So that's how we decided. These projects, usually internally we do a selection of projects, and then this goes to our home office and the projects are approved. And after that is when we start implementing them. So it's not really related to the property's footprint, it's related to what is needed in the places that we are operating. So we have very different projects across the entire portfolio. And the other question was, sorry.
Right. Is that selection related to the property's footprint also?
No, that's what I just answered. No, it's not related to the operation footprint, because that we try to reduce with the operation section, and that's not funded by the Sustainability Fund. The Sustainability Fund cannot have anything related to the operation of the resort. It's just to support projects that benefit the places where we are located, but not directly the operation of the resort. That is operations money.
Okay, great. So we have a question for you, Jerome. Really fantastic program that you have that is globally recognized, and of course, coral reef tourism is coral reefs are worth something on the order of, both in direct and induced benefits, about $39 billion. They're somewhere in that ballpark. And so the question is, how is the reef application open to others to use, and how are you socializing it on the global stage?
So, like I mentioned, it was a tool that we developed in-house. So right now, only coral gardeners are using it, And we're trying to get rid of those unnecessary bugs that all software go through. So once we got that done, it's want to be shared out to the public or to other restoration NGOs that do coral work. We also shared it with a group in Samoa, 5 of the phones that use the REP app, and that helps us get more data.
Thank you. I have a question for Andrew, which is related to volunteerism, or how do you engage travelers in giving something back, either as part of the experience or philanthropic funds. In your past life, you were the lead and sustainability partnership director for Leave No Trace, which was really one of the global pioneers for educating travelers about how to minimize their impact. Can you describe in general the approach that you might take in building awareness for travelers, educating them, and getting them involved at the destination level?
I think the starting place for that is what impact will these projects that visitors who are showing up for an hour, 2 hours a day, what will those projects do? Are they just single projects that a group is showing up for? Is something cumulative that over the course of a season or a year that many visitors are contributing to? So I think starting with those questions first to determine what will that resource, a volunteer who's willing to raise their hand and say, I'm on vacation with my family, but we know giving back is really important. What can we do? Starting with the question of what impact do we want it to have in the community, I think is really important. Then figuring out what groups are there to help support this. Who needs help? Who can manage volunteers? There are a lot of destinations in the US that are really interested in the idea of voluntourism, so destination organizations. However, they are not the ones managing it. They're trying to determine who in the community can best be served by it and what does that look like. But often those NGOs or those smaller groups are 1 to 2 person operations, and it might be very difficult to support having extra people come and be trained and sign liability waivers and all the things that go along with that. It is possible, and many people do it, and there are many visitors who seek that out. There are many residents who seek those things out too. But you also asked about the philanthropic side, which I think is interesting. In that same destination that Coraggio Group works with, North Lake Tahoe, there's a fund called the Tahoe Fund. It goes to a nonprofit group, and that nonprofit group distributes those dollars all across the entire Lake Tahoe region, which is very large. There's a South Lake Tahoe region as well. The interesting part is how those funds come into the organization. And one of the mechanisms is that if you're going out to eat at a restaurant or spending time at a retailer or anywhere that you are running a credit card, when you have the opportunity to sign the credit card to the point of sale, you can add any number of dollars you want into the Tahoe Fund. So much like tipping a server or wait staff or something like that. You can do that for the Tahoe Fund. And it's been extremely successful in raising dollars from people who may not have the time on their journey or vacation or wherever it might be to volunteer, but they appreciate that this is an opportunity to put their dollars towards something specific. So it's as easy as getting into a point of sale system that everybody uses to be able to engage this. And of course, the management side of it, the transparency, the accountability, all those things must be in place too. But it's a very interesting mechanism for something to get used day in and day out, especially in the cashless society that we're transforming into with credit cards.
Thank you, Andrew. Travel philanthropy is a whole nother topic that we'll save for a future GSTC conference. Raquel and Jerome, we're interested in terms of how you measure and monitor that your activities are ecologically meaningful or impactful, not only for the environment, but for communities.
Yeah, I think I'll answer that one. In Coraggio, we have this tool called, it's a Reef Cam. It's an AI generated tool where it's underwater and it tracks the fish that goes into our restoration sites. Now this helps us collect data on the type of fish that goes into our restoration sites. It helps us analyze that whether it's working or not. These AI tools, first we have to train it to identify the fish species, but once it's all good, it can identify it itself. And these are some tools that we have developed in-house also.
Just to add to what Jerome mentioned, these corals that are outplanted, they are not just outplanted out of nowhere. So there was research about what are the species that would be common in that reef, and then the team does all the monitoring, so they can see if how the species are surviving. They can see again all the species that are coming to the reef, and if it's thriving, it's a sign that it's meaningful. I think that at least it's the start of being meaningful. Of course, this is something that takes a long time. It's like any other type of regeneration. So if we are not seeing any imbalance of other species, it's a good sign. So I don't think we will creating any harm. That's what I would add to this.
Okay, thank you. Again, please feel free to add your questions to Slido. We've covered some of these already, but I had a question for any of you in terms of your programs. To what degree do you partner with academia or science to make sure that your programs are grounded in solid science?
Can start. So we have these two main projects in terms of the restoration. So for the project related to the Fijian crested iguanas, we partner with Dr. Peter Harlow. He is the person that probably has more knowledge about this species because he's been studying this species for decades in Fiji and have hundreds of papers of knowledge about this species. So he's the one that consults with us. So it's not just me thinking what species should be planted. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of knowledge that it's not available, but everything that we are doing is backed up with science and with the knowledge with him and the teams that's been working with. And about the projects related with the coral gardeners, there's also a backup science, and there's scientists that are part of the coral gardeners team. So it's not just a group of coral gardeners, but there's the people that are focused on the technical side, but there's also a group of people inside the coral gardeners that are doing research and that are knowledgeable about that, and that's how all the group is backed up.
And relatedly, Dwayne, I have a question for you in terms of your members are not only the countries and territories in the Pacific region, but can you describe some of your other partners in terms of coming up your strategies and tactics?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just in terms of some of the work that we're doing in the Pacific, so we've partnered with the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation of Australia, CSIRO, to carry out the litter monitoring program under the Pacific Ocean Litter Project. And so we're implementing that particular program in a number of countries in Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, and Fiji. So we've completed the baseline surveys for Tuvalu, Solomon Islands, and Fiji. And Samoa. Fiji remains to be completed, and that'll be done in September. The idea is that from the surveys, a baseline of the different types of litter, not necessarily just single-use plastics, will be developed. And the idea is that in 2 years' time, follow-up surveys will be conducted, and that's a comparison between the baseline and the follow-up survey will be done, an analysis. And the idea is that the data and the analysis information from that exercise will be provided to Pacific Island countries to help inform enhanced policy decision-making in terms of measures, again, to refuse, reduce, and address problematic single-use plastics.
Well, I'm afraid we have run out of time. Again, all the presentations are available and will be available post-conference on GSTC's YouTube channel. The slides will also be made available in the post-trip or post-conference materials. So please join me in thanking all of our panelists for their great contributions today.